My stepson's new car sparked a family crisis. Picture this, a 19-year-old kid, beaming with pride, rolls up in a shiny new car, a gift from his wealthy biological mom. Now, imagine the simmering resentment of his almost adult stepbrother, who sees this as a glaring injustice. This is my life right now, and it's a mess. My stepson's new ride, a symbol of his mom's affluence, has ignited a firestorm in our blended family. I'm caught in the crosshairs, trying to navigate teenage emotions, property disputes, and a shocking act of vandalism that's left us all reeling. Let's back up. My stepson's biological mom comes from money. Unlike me, a single mom scraping by. She bought her son a car, and I was genuinely happy for him. It's not every day a kid gets such a life-changing gift. But my son, teetering on the edge of adulthood, didn't see it that way. To him, it was a slap in the face. Why does he get a car and I don't? He fumed, his voice dripping with envy. I tried to explain that life isn't always fair, that his stepbrother's mom has no obligation to him. But teenagers, as we all know, aren't exactly champions of reason. His solution? An ultimatum that still makes my jaw drop. Either he gets to drive his stepbrother's car, or the car has to go. Yes. You read that right. My son thought he could dictate what happens to someone else's property. I sat him down, calmly explaining that the car belongs to his stepbrother, and he has no right to demand access. Permission, not entitlement, is the rule. But he wasn't having it. His eyes burned with defiance, and he doubled down, repeating his absurd demand. Then, things took a dark turn. My husband confronted him, and instead of backing down, my son lashed out in a way I never could have predicted. Under the cover of night, he unleashed his rage on the car. Paint splattered across the hood, headlights smashed, the front end mangled beyond recognition. The next morning, my stepson collapsed in tears at the sight of his prized possession ruined. My husband, after reviewing our driveway camera footage, was livid. The video was unmistakable. My son, laughing as he destroyed someone else's property. When confronted, he didn't apologize. He laughed. He flipped off my husband. The audacity was staggering. I was torn between shock and shame. This wasn't just teenage rebellion. This was something deeper, something troubling. In a desperate bid to make things right, I took the savings my son had earmarked for summer camp and handed them to my husband to cover the damages. It felt like the only way to hold him accountable. Big mistake. My son exploded. He accused me of stealing, of betraying him to please my husband. He hurled insults at his stepbrother, claiming he'd warned him. Worst of all, he blamed me for not buying him a car or convincing my husband to do so, as if that would have prevented his outburst. Now he's barricaded himself in his room, refusing to eat or speak. I'm terrified. He's done this before and ended up in the hospital with dangerously low blood pressure. Was I wrong to take his savings? I'm wrestling with that question. On one hand, actions have consequences, and he needs to learn that. On the other, I wonder if I've pushed him too far. The internet's verdict is brutal but clear. My son's behavior isn't just teenage angst, it's a red flag. Commenters point out that at his age, he should grasp that his stepbrother's mom owes him nothing. Some even argue he's lucky the police weren't called, as vandalism like this could be a felony. Others are harsher, questioning why I've let him feel entitled enough to make demands in the first place. They're not wrong. I've spent years trying to be the understanding mom, but maybe I've been too soft, too afraid of rocking the boat. Here's the controversial hook. What if we've been coddling our kids too much, shielding them from consequences until they grow into entitled adults? Society tells us to empathize with teenage struggles, but when does empathy become enabling? My son's actions weren't just a tantrum. They were destructive, remorseless, and dangerous. If we don't teach kids that the world doesn't owe them anything, are we setting them up for a life of disappointment? Or worse? This story isn't just about a car. It's about fairness, entitlement, and the messy reality of blended families. My son's jealousy tapped into a universal human flaw, the tendency to compare ourselves to others and cry unfair when we come up short. Psychologists call this relative deprivation, and it's a cognitive bias that fuels resentment. By focusing on what his stepbrother had, my son lost sight of his own blessings. And by lashing out, he didn't just hurt his stepbrother, he fractured our family. I'm left with a choice. Stand firm and let him face the consequences, or cave to his hunger strike and risk reinforcing his behavior. For now, I'm choosing the former, but it's tearing me apart. If you've ever dealt with a teenager who feels the world owes them, you know this isn't just a phase. It's a battle for their future. My fiancé's jealousy over my friend's glamour. Now, let's shift gears to a different kind of drama. One that's less about vandalism and more about emotional landmines. I'm a 29-year-old guy, engaged to Jane, a 27-year-old lawyer who's my rock. She's supportive, kind, and we've been together for 7 years. But there's a shadow looming over our relationship, and her name is Sarah. Sarah and I have been friends since we were 7. She's a bridal consultant and stylist, with a glamorous flair that turns heads wherever she goes. Think red carpet vibes, flawless makeup, and outfits that scream high fashion. Jane, on the other hand, has a casual chic style that suits her grounded personality. I love Jane's unique beauty, but Sarah's the kind of woman who commands a room. And that's where things get messy. Last weekend, we attended an engagement party for a mutual friend. Sarah walked in and, as usual, every head turned. Her outfit was a masterpiece. Think shimmering sequins and a hairstyle that could grace a magazine cover. I couldn't help myself. I gushed over her look, complimenting her all night. I mean, she'd outdone herself. But while I was caught up in the moment, Jane was crumbling. Later, I found her sitting alone, her eyes red. She snapped at me, saying I was ridiculous for acting clueless. Then, the bombshell. The host's fiancé pulled me aside and revealed Jane had been crying in the hallway. She felt humiliated, convinced she'd never be as good or pretty as Sarah in my eyes. Worse, the fiancé hinted that Sarah's outfit was inappropriate, accusing her of hogging the spotlight. I was floored. Had I really been that blind? The internet didn't hold back. Commenters called me out for fawning over Sarah while ignoring Jane's feelings. "You're salivating over her," one wrote. "Control yourself, you're a grown man." Another pointed out that excessive compliments to anyone other than your partner are creepy and disrespectful. They're right. I didn't mean to hurt Jane, but my actions screamed insensitivity. Here's the controversial angle. Is it wrong to admire beauty, even platonically, when it hurts your partner? We're conditioned to think honesty and appreciation are always good, but what if they come at the cost of someone's self-esteem? Jane's jealousy isn't just about Sarah's looks. It's about feeling invisible next to her. And I fed into that by not noticing Jane's pain. This taps into a cognitive bias called the spotlight effect, where we overestimate how much others notice our flaws. Jane felt like everyone was comparing her to Sarah, and my compliments only amplified that. To fix this, I need to rebuild her trust, starting with an apology and a commitment to prioritize her feelings. But it's not just about me. It's about society's obsession with conventionally attractive people and how it leaves others feeling less than. I'm not attracted to Sarah romantically. Our lifestyles and goals are worlds apart. But I can't deny I got carried away. Jane deserves better, and I'm determined to make it right. I lost my leg, and my boyfriend's freaking out. Now, let's dive into a story that's less about drama and more about vulnerability. I'm a 22-year-old woman with a prosthetic leg, a reality I've lived with since a childhood accident at age 3. To me, it's just part of who I am. I don't remember life without it. But when it came to my new boyfriend, a 25-year-old guy I've been seeing for 2 months, I hadn't found the right moment to bring it up, until fate forced my hand. We were having dinner at his place, a cozy evening he'd planned. As he set out the food, he bumped the table, sending a vase crashing onto my prosthetic leg. He panicked, begging me to roll up my pant leg to check for injuries. I couldn't help but laugh, partly from relief, partly from the absurdity of the moment. "I'm fine," I said, but he wouldn't let it go. So, to prove it, I removed my prosthetic and explained my story. His reaction? Not what I expected. He was embarrassed, sure, but also upset that I hadn't told him sooner. I apologized, explaining it's not exactly a first date conversation starter. I promised I'd have told him before we got intimate. No one wants that surprise. But the mood was ruined. He barely spoke through dinner, and later he texted me, saying he felt betrayed by my silence and humiliated by my laughter. Now he's asked for space to think. Was I wrong? The internet split. Some say neither of us is at fault. It was a shocking moment, and emotions ran high. Others argue I should have disclosed my prosthetic earlier, calling it a trust issue. 2 months and he didn't know? One commenter wrote, "You're hiding it. That stings, but I get it." Still, how do you casually drop, "Hey, I have one leg," into a conversation? Here's the provocative twist. Why do we expect people with disabilities to announce their differences as if it's their job to make others comfortable? Society's default is able-bodied, and anything else feels like a reveal. That's not fair. My laughter was a mockery. It was a reflex, a release of tension. But his reaction makes me wonder if he's ready for the real me. This story highlights the normalcy bias, where we assume everyone fits a standard mold until proven otherwise. I wasn't hiding my leg, I was living my life. If he can't handle that, maybe he's not the one. For now, I'm giving him space. But I'm not apologizing for who I am. My neighbors turned on me over a minivan. Finally, let's talk about community, generosity, and the ugly side of entitlement. I'm a 29-year-old woman living in a tight-knit neighborhood with my 80-year-old mom, who stays with me part-time. To make her life easier, I bought a customized minivan with a wheelchair ramp. When she's not here, the van sits unused until I notice my neighbors struggle. They have a severely disabled daughter, wheelchair-bound and nonverbal. Transporting her is a nightmare without the right vehicle. So, for 18 months, I let them borrow my van whenever I didn't need it. It felt like the right thing to do. But now, they've crossed a line. They want to take the van for a 2-week road trip to Disney World, starting just days before my mom arrives from a 12-hour flight. I asked them to delay by a few days so I could pick her up comfortably. They refused, calling me selfish. Then the neighborhood turned. I wasn't invited to the latest barbecue. No one waves anymore. The kids who used to play with my dogs stopped coming by. My texts to the neighbors went unanswered. They've blocked me. I feel like an outcast in my own home. Should I cave? The internet says no. Don't let the idiots win, one commenter wrote. Others point out the audacity of planning a vacation around someone else's car, especially after I've been so generous. If they can afford Disney, they can afford their own van, another said. It's true, a 2-week trip for 4 isn't cheap. Why am I the villain for prioritizing my mom? Here's the controversial hook. Are we too quick to judge selfishness when someone sets boundaries? Generosity doesn't mean saying yes to everything. By expecting my van, my neighbors tapped into the reciprocity bias, where people feel entitled to more because you've given before. But boundaries aren't betrayal, they're self-respect. I'm done lending the van. If that makes me the bad guy, so be it. But I'm not living in a hostile environment forever. It's time to find a community that values me, not just what I can give. Conclusion. Lessons in empathy and accountability. These stories aren't just gossip. They're mirrors reflecting our flaws and fears. From entitlement to jealousy to vulnerability, they expose the messy truths of human relationships. My son's vandalism reminds us that unchecked emotions can destroy more than property. My fiancé's oversight shows how easy it is to hurt the ones we love. My prosthetic leg saga challenges us to rethink normal. And my neighbor's betrayal proves that generosity has limits. What ties these together? The need for empathy balanced with accountability. We can't excuse bad behavior, but we can understand the emotions behind it. And sometimes, the hardest but most necessary choice is to stand your ground, even when it makes you the villain.